Hi, how you doing? This is Mr. Russo again. This is video number 2. So we're going to go again with one-step equations, and we're going to start to work with numbers that are a little bit more difficult to deal with. Hopefully you watch video number 1, and this works off of video number 1. Okay, so if I had, let's say, something like 1/5 plus x equals 3. So now I still have, it's a one-step equation, even though I have a fraction here. I look at my equal sign, I find the variable is on the left side, so that means I'm not trying to do something with the 3. If I'm on the left side, I'm trying to do something with the 1/5. I want to get rid of that number in order to get the variable by itself. So I always look to the left of the number that I'm trying to get rid of, and I find that, okay, this number doesn't have a sign, that means it's positive. And do I subtract it, or do I divide both sides by that number to get rid of it? If I have that plus or minus, again, in between the variable and the number, that immediately tells me, okay, this is an adding and subtracting step. So I do that. If I know it's an adding and subtracting step, I look at the sign's positive, I do the opposite, so I'm going to subtract 1/5 from both sides. There are many options on getting rid of the fraction or rewriting the problem where there are no fractions, but this is the most common, the most basic way that you're going to start to learn how to solve a one-step equation that involves a fraction. All right, so from here, this is gone. I bring down my x, I bring down my equal sign, and now I rewrite this vertical expression horizontally. I always start with the top number. So if it's 3, I might want to write it as 3 over 1 because I anticipate having to do something with fractions. So 3 over 1 minus 1 over 5. And from here, if I know, if I'm decent with my fraction skills, I'm going to know that whenever I add or subtract fractions, I'm going to have a common denominator. Now, how do I get a common denominator? I try and look at my denominators, 1 and 5, and say, what do 1 and 5 both go into evenly, which is 5. So if I want to make this a 5, I have to multiply by 5, and whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom, and vice versa. And then from here, 3 times 5 is 15, 1 times 5 is 5, minus the 1/5, and I still have equal to x. And from here, I'm going to try and finish it up now. 15 minus 1 is 14 over 5. So x equals 14 over 5. And we're done because the fraction is fully reduced. But if I want, I can try to write it as a mixed number if it's an improper fraction. So 5 goes into 14, 2 times, that's 10. 14 minus 10 is 4 left over the present denominator. So both of these answers, or the decimal equivalent of it, is going to most likely be acceptable on a test or whatever you're doing. But sometimes we run into decimal numbers that go on forever, or are a little bit difficult to calculate. So the improper fraction or mixed number is usually the ones that you're going to see on these videos. Okay, so this was my first equation that I wanted to show you with the fraction. I'm going to go with number 2 now. Number 2. Let's say if I had something like this. Okay, so here is obviously a problem where I still have my x on the left-hand side, but now there's no plus or a minus in between the x. And I'm not looking to do something with this. I always go to where my variable is, and I say, what numbers are on the same side as my variable, and then those are the numbers that I want to get rid of. So it's pretty obvious that no plus or minus means multiplication, and I want to get rid of that 3. So if it's not an addition or subtraction step, obviously I got my multiplication, opposite is division, and this is how we show division. We do not show division like this. We show it by writing a fraction. We divide by whatever that number is. So I can divide by 3, divide by 3, and then go from there. And there are many steps that I have to do over here to write it correctly and calculate it. But so I'm going to show you the traditional way, which is what I'm doing now, but then there's another method which I call the pickup method, which is a little bit quicker, a little bit less to write, and a little bit quicker. So from here I'm dividing. I divide, I get x equals this fraction divided by this number, which I'm going to write as a fraction. So I first write -2/5. Now I show this division sign, and then by this number, but I'm going to write it as a fraction, so 3/1. And then there's a rule with dividing fractions where you do keep, change, flip. So I keep this fraction, excuse me, the way it is. I change this to multiplication, and then I take the reciprocal, or I flip this fraction. So it's -2/5 times the reciprocal 1/3. And it's still equal to x. And then from there, now I just multiply my fractions. So I have -2 times 1. I can't simplify within my calculation because one numerator and one denominator, there's nothing that's common there. So I can't simplify this particular problem. So x equals -2/15. And it's a fraction that's fully reduced, and I really can't change this fraction as an improper fraction to a mixed number. It's a proper fraction. We can't do anything else. So I'm just going to circle it, and then we're done. Now the answer is -2/15. I'm going to erase this problem, do it again, showing the pickup method, and you're going to see it's a little bit less to write and maybe a little bit quicker. Okay, so we still start here. We're doing the same exact problem a second time, and because I acknowledge that it's multiplication, I know that my step is division. But this is a little bit quicker way, called the pickup method. So I pick up that number. You can only do this step when we know that there's multiplication here. I pick it up, I bring it onto the other side, and what I do is I have to remember to flip whatever number is here, take the reciprocal of it. So if it's 3, it really means it's 3/1, and then I have to flip it. So it's a multiplication step, just like over here. Flip it, I get 1/3, and now this number gets crossed out. And from here, I'm actually doing right here what I did down here before. So then I just multiply like I did, -2/15. And it's a little bit less to write, a little bit quicker, gets you to the answer faster. Okay, so this is video number 2. I showed 2 problems, one that had, again, an addition or subtraction step, and one that had a multiplication or division step, but now we incorporated a fraction. So video 3 and 4, they're going to get a little bit more difficult.